Football has produced thousands of iconic photos over the years. Some captured history, others created it. But there's one photograph that did something no one thought was possible. Because hidden inside this single image was the past, the present, and perhaps even the future of football. At first glance, it doesn't look special. It's just a young Lionel Messi, carefully holding a baby during what seems like an ordinary photo shoot. Nothing unusual, nothing historic. Just another day, another picture, another forgotten moment. But what if I told you, this wasn't just a random baby? What if I told you that years later, this same child would grow into the player millions believe could become football's next king? Even crazier, neither Messi nor anyone else in that room had the slightest idea they were witnessing the beginning of one of football's most unbelievable stories. And no, this isn't AI. This isn't Photoshop. This photo is completely real. And once you hear the full story behind it, you'll never look at it the same way again. When this photograph first resurfaced on social media, thousands of people thought it had to be fake. How could Lionel Messi possibly know Lamine Yamal as a baby? Was it edited? Was it created by artificial intelligence? Or was it simply another viral internet hoax? But the truth was far more unbelievable. Because every single part of the story was real. The year was 2007. Lionel Messi was only 20 years old. He hadn't won multiple Ballon d'Ors. He hadn't become Barcelona's greatest player. He hadn't lifted the World Cup. To football fans, he was simply an incredibly talented young player who many believed had the potential to become something special. Nobody knew he would become the greatest footballer of his generation. And on one ordinary day in Barcelona, football history quietly began writing another chapter. Every year, FC Barcelona worked with UNICEF on charity campaigns designed to raise money and awareness for children around the world. One campaign involved producing a charity calendar featuring Barcelona players alongside local families. For most people, it was just another fundraising event. Nobody expected it to become one of football's most famous photographs almost 20 years later. Families entered a raffle hoping to be selected for the photo shoot. Among those families was one from Mataró, Spain. Against all odds, they won. They brought along their baby son, just a few months old. And because Lionel Messi had been assigned to that particular photo shoot, the two unexpectedly met for the very first time. At first, things were actually a little awkward. Messi was known for being incredibly shy. He wasn't exactly comfortable posing with babies. Photographers later recalled that he seemed nervous about even holding the child. After all, he was only 20 years old himself. The idea of placing someone else's baby into his arms wasn't exactly part of football training. Eventually, Messi relaxed. He gently helped bathe the baby inside a tiny plastic bathtub while photographers captured the moment. Everyone smiled. Everyone laughed. The photos were taken. The family went home. Messi returned to training. And life simply moved on. Or so everyone thought. The calendar was published, the campaign ended, and like thousands of other charity photographs, it slowly disappeared into history. Almost nobody remembered it existed. Years passed. 1 year became 5. 5 became 10. Then nearly 2 decades went by, without anyone realizing that one tiny baby inside that bathtub was quietly growing into one of football's brightest talents. A second story was beginning. While the world watched Lionel Messi become a global icon, another story was unfolding only a few kilometers away. A little boy was beginning to fall in love with football. Nobody connected him to that famous photograph. Nobody even remembered the photo shoot. Because back then, he wasn't Lamine Yamal. He was simply another child kicking a football through the streets of Catalonia. But this wasn't just another child. His left foot was different. His confidence was different. And before long, everyone around him started saying exactly the same thing. You've got to see this kid. By the age most children were still learning the basics of football, this boy was already doing things that made Barcelona's coaches stop and stare. Within a few years, he wouldn't just be breaking academy records. He would be breaking records that had stood for decades. And that's when football fans finally discovered something that sent the internet into complete shock. The wonder kid everyone was talking about was the same baby Lionel Messi had unknowingly held almost 20 years earlier. Most football stars have one moment when the world finally notices them. For Lamine Yamal, that moment came much later, because long before millions of fans knew his name, Barcelona already did. Born on July 13, 2007, just days before the famous charity photo shoot with Lionel Messi, Lamine grew up in Mataró and spent much of his childhood in Rocafonda, a neighborhood that would later become part of his identity. Like millions of children around the world, he fell in love with football at an early age. But unlike most kids, there was something different about the way he played. He wasn't the tallest or the strongest player on the pitch, yet every time the ball reached his left foot, something magical seemed to happen. Defenders couldn't predict his next move. Coaches couldn't believe the decisions he made at such a young age. And before long, word about an extraordinary little boy started spreading throughout youth football in Catalonia. It didn't take long for Barcelona's scouts to hear those whispers, and after watching him play, they knew they had found someone special. Lamine was invited to join La Masia, the same legendary academy that had once shaped the careers of Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, and of course, Lionel Messi himself. Earning a place at La Masia is already one of the hardest achievements in youth football, but staying there is even harder. Every year, thousands of talented youngsters dream of wearing the Barcelona badge, yet only a handful ever make it to the first team. From the very beginning, however, Lamine looked different. Coaches quickly realized that he wasn't just another talented academy player. He was consistently outperforming boys older than him, so they kept promoting him to higher age groups. Every time the challenge became tougher, he somehow looked even better. Inside La Masia, people began talking about him in the same way they had once spoken about another gifted left-footed youngster years earlier. But there was one problem. Whenever football discovers a teenager with extraordinary talent, people rush to give him a dangerous label: the next Messi. It sounds like the greatest compliment in the world, but history shows it's often a curse. Over the years, dozens of young footballers have been compared to Lionel Messi, only to disappear under the weight of impossible expectations. Some lost confidence, others struggled with injuries, and many simply couldn't live up to comparisons with arguably the greatest player football has ever seen. Barcelona understood this better than anyone. They had watched similar stories unfold before, so they tried to protect Lamine from the spotlight for as long as possible. But hiding someone with his talent was becoming impossible. Every training session created new stories, every youth match produced another viral highlight, and every coach reached the same conclusion: this boy was ready. Then came the moment every academy player dreams about. At just 15 years old, while most teenagers were still focused on school and homework, Lamine received the call to train with Barcelona's first team. Imagine walking into a dressing room filled with players you'd spent your childhood watching on television. The pressure would have crushed most teenagers, but Lamine looked completely calm. He played with the same confidence that had amazed coaches since he was a child. When he finally made his senior debut for Barcelona, history was made. He became one of the youngest players ever to wear the famous shirt, and it quickly became clear that this wasn't just another academy graduate making a brief appearance. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Over the following months, the headlines kept coming. Youngest debut, youngest starter, youngest goals, youngest records. It felt as if every few weeks Lamine Yamal's name was attached to another piece of football history. As his reputation continued to grow, journalists and fans became increasingly curious about his background. They searched through old interviews, childhood stories, and forgotten family photographs, hoping to learn more about football's newest wonder kid. And that's when someone rediscovered a picture that had been buried in history for almost 2 decades. It showed a young Lionel Messi gently holding a baby during a UNICEF charity photo shoot back in 2007. Within hours, the image spread across the internet. Millions of people assumed it had to be fake. Some believed it had been created using artificial intelligence, while others thought it was simply another viral Photoshop edit. But photographer Joan Montfort, Lamine Yamal's family, and multiple news organizations all confirmed the same incredible truth. The photograph was completely authentic. Suddenly, it wasn't just a cute childhood picture anymore. It had become one of football's greatest coincidences. The greatest player of one generation had unknowingly held the player many now believed could lead the next. Yet, as unbelievable as that sounded, the story still wasn't finished. Because football had one final chapter left to write. One that would bring Lionel Messi and Lamine Yamal together once again. Not as a football legend and a baby, but as 2 players standing on the world's biggest stage.